Hello and welcome to Making Games in C. I'm Oliver, your host, and today we'll be starting to make our first game, a text adventure game. So to start us off, I've just created a new directory in my documents called Making Games in C. I'm just going to create another directory for our first episode, make dir episode 1. Okay, I'm going to change directory into episode 1, list what's in episode 1, so we've got nothing, so that's a good start. So we're going to create a new first file, so we're going to call it main.c. So that's what our whole program is going to be typed into. And then we're going to head over to our text editor. So I've just got our text editor open here. And I'm going to open up episode 1 and main.c, the file we just created. So to start us off, we're going to create the entry point to our program. So all programs that run on the command line go through this this same entry point. So it has a int arg count and char star args an array. So it's saying there's a number of arguments being passed in, and these are the arguments in string form. And then we're going to return 0. So we're not the function signature wants us to return an int, but we actually don't want to do anything special from that, so we're just going to say return nothing. So that looks good. So we'll save that. Then we can head over to our command line again, and that's compile this. So I'm going to use gcc as the compiler, and we're going to compile main.c. So run that. So no errors. We'll list what's in our current directory. We've got an a.out file. So that's our executable. So we can run that now. So in this directory, run a.out. And nothing happens because our program doesn't do anything yet. Okay, so another argument you can pass to the compiler is the output file name. So we can say -out, saying this is a special argument. This is the output argument name, and we're going to call our game adventure. So ls. So we got our adventure file, and we can run that just as before, and again nothing happens. And we'll just remove with rm the a.out file just to keep it a bit cleaner. Okay, so we'll head back over to our text editor, and I'm going to just pull our compile script into its own file, so we don't have to type that every time. So we can say new file. Going to call it a build.sh. So shell script because we're on Mac, and in Windows this will be a .bat file. And so we're just going to paste our compile script, and so that's good. Save that, and we'll compile it from our text editor. So I'm using forcoder, which has a hotkey linked up to running the build.sh scripts in the current directory. So if I press Control M, well, it tries to run it, but it says permission denied. So we don't have enough permissions. We're not allowing other programs to access our shell script. So we'll just change that. So we'll look at the current permissions by doing ls-la. And so our permissions, so it hasn't got a lot. So it's got very little. So let's just change that. And we'll run it as a sudo, so as the root user, and change the permissions of the build.sh, and we're going to say, be very lenient and to say 755 and on the build.sh file. So that looks good. We'll just look at our permissions, what we got. And so that looks good. So a lot of people can execute this and read it. So we'll head back over to our text editor. I've just mixed that up. So we'll try that again. We'll try run it. Exit 0, code 0. So that's good. So it's able to access that build script, and we can run from our command line. Okay, let's get into coding now. So all our code is going to be between here and here for our program. Everything that it's going to run, it's going to enter here, run through these codes sequentially, what we're going to type, and just finish. So to start us off, we're going to be using two main functions as the backbone of our game here. We're going to be using the printf function and the fget function. So let's just talk about the printf function first. So printf prints things to the console. It types things out so we can interact with our console and see output from our program. So let's just say our classic hello world. And I'll just get rid of fgets so it's a bit easy to see. So we'll save that, compile, and it says implicitly declaring library function printf with type. Type int. So it's basically saying hey, it's called printf, but I don't know what that is. So, and then it's giving us a hint. Yeah, hey, it's in the standard IO library, and we can do this by including the header file standard.io.h. So we're going to use our keyword include, and we're going to include with our brackets stdio.h. And so the brackets mean, so this file is not in our directory. Go look at the computer files. So this is something that's a lib that we link to. So we've got that, and then we'll just try compile again, and it works. So that's good. And then we'll run our program in our command line. So in this directory, run adventure. And we got hello world. And see, it didn't leave us a new line. And that's because we have to actually pass the new line escape character. So this is a \n for new line. So we'll just type that, save it, compile it, and run it again. So we got a new line this time. So that looks all good. The other functionality of printf we're going to be using is that it can take more than one argument. And you can pass as many arguments as you like to printf. But the way it understands what they're used for is by passing in certain tokens into our string. So we can insert things by using the %s. I'll put this at the end. So if I do %s, it's saying, hey, it reaches %, hey, this is a special character next. And it sees s, oh, it's a string. So I must have passed in a string with it. So if I try compile without actually passing any extra arguments, it's saying, hey, you passed this, but you didn't pass any extra arguments. So I can say, hello world, it's a fine day outside. And new line. Well, we don't have to do a new line here because it's going to insert this text straight into here. So then it's going to follow with a new line. So we'll save that, compile, and it works. So let's run it. Hello world is a fine day outside. So that's worked by inserting this string into here. So that's going to be one of the main functions of our printf, how we're going to be using it in our program. Then we'll go on to fgets. So fgets is basically allowing the user to pass us input. This prints out information. This gets information from the user. So we can type into the command line, and we can press enter, and it'll understand that, hey, we just put in some information, let's deal with that. So we do fget, and this is going to take 3 arguments. First, it's going to take a buffer that we actually store the string in. So we need to declare that beforehand. So it's a char buffer. So let's call it input buffer. And let's give it a nice big size, so people can pass lots of characters in. And we're going to initialize it to all zeros. So we're going to pass input buffer, the size. So I can do 1028. And fgets puts a null terminator at the end of our buffer, our string, but it automatically accounts for this in our sizing. So even if we pass 2028, it's only going to allow 1027 characters to be put in the buffer. So we don't have to pass -1. And then our next argument is where we're getting it from. So is it from a file, or is it from the console? In this case, it's from the console, and we can say the standard input. So let's see what happens now. So we should get the computer should ask us, wait for us to put in some input, and then when we press enter, it says, okay, input's done, let's see what we got. And then we're going to print out what we got. We use our printf, %s, -n, new line, and let's go input buffer. And then we'll compile, and we'll run our program. So hello world is a fine day outside. But now it hasn't finished, it hasn't gone back to the command line. It's waiting for us to put in input. So we can say, this is our first input. I'll press enter to notify that we're finished typing now. And then output what we typed in. This is our first input. And then it gave us a new line. And the reason that it gave a new line, 2 new lines, is we did one here, but also when we press enter, that got stored in the buffer as well as another character. So we will have to deal with that when we start passing our input. We have to note that, hey, there's an extra character, there's the return character we pressed that's still stored in there. So if we run it like that, we won't get this extra space either. So that concludes our first episode. So we make pretty good ground. We've got our files to start building our program up, and we've got our two main functions we're going to be using. So next episode we'll start trying to pass the input that we're given into the words that are part of that sentence. So if we say take bread, we want our program to understand that, hey, there's two words here. There was a take and there's a bread. And then we can start acting on the meanings of those words. So what does take actually do in our program? What does bread do in the context of where we are in the game? What room we're in? What items are in that room? So thanks for watching this episode, and see you next episode.